All right, fellas, what's up? I'm going to be talking today, mostly, about sales, particularly about client-centric sales. We've spoken so many times over and over again on this podcast about how selling is coaching, and we've said that, and I don't think we've ever actually said what that meant, which is kind of like a joke move. And so what I'm going to do today is go super deep. And if you hear like more giggling and less sense than usual amongst all of us, there's a reason for it. So I sent a message because I'm like revving on all engines on this book right now. I'm at, I think, 36,000 words. I finished all of the marketing and sales and business sections, and now I'm on like all of the client care type stuff. And if you remember, I actually wrote the final section first. So the final section's done. The first two sections are finished, and they're considerably longer because there's not that much to talk about with client care. It's like inarguably more important than anything else, but there's just not as much to say as there is with marketing and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm basically finished all of the hard parts of the book. And so we haven't had a podcast in a little bit as I've been writing a lot, and so I have a lot of material. So I sent dear listener, I'll tell you this story. So I sent Amber and Ren a message on our Facebook thread, which of course is called Podcast Fourth Time's a Charm. And my message to them this morning, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, you know that I don't share the topics with them beforehand. Generally what I do is I prepare a fair bit for this podcast, but I don't tell them what each episode is going to be about because I want them to kind of be active listeners as if they're listeners to the podcast, and their reactions and their questions and their input is stuff that you might be giving at the same time. And I just think that's a really fun way to have a conversation. And so, and also takes less organization on my end, and I'm not very good at organization, so that helps as well. I can like get prepared for myself, but to try to make sure other people are prepared, I'm not so good at that. Okay. So I sent a message in our Facebook group and I said, got a few options for the pod today. I say pod now because I'm like really cool.
That is very cool.
I say, do you want the one where you participate more, or one where you basically just listen to me rattle off stuff for an hour? And Amber said, let you rattle. I'm operating on no sleep. Nate partied from 1:15 to 6:15. I'm assuming that's AM. I got about 4 hours of broken sleep. Yawn emoji. I think that's yawn emoji. It might be like emoji, like blowing down wind in a house, but I'm assuming that's a yawn emoji. And then Ren responded with, I had a root scaling at the dentist this morning. I'm good for a few intersections during the show. Rattle away, sir. I'm going to continue drinking my steak smoothie. And all that I could think when I heard this, when I got those responses from you, was number one, I'm paying you both far too much.
Can't take it back now.
I know. And number two, that in every relationship, people talk about relationships all the time, and they say relationships should be 50-50. And I've found in my experience that that's not true. Relationships are 90-10. At any one given time, one partner often gives 90% into the relationship, the other person gives 10. And then that can flip. In our case, maybe not. But most of the time that flips. Each partner sometimes will be giving 90. And when everybody's giving 90, it's like, it's amazing, right? Like these are like the moments you remember in a relationship. But most of the time it's 90-10. And when in understanding that, you can't be upset at the person who's only giving 10% because that's kind of part of the deal with the relationship. And so that's helped me better understand the relationship with Allison, and now I guess with you guys. So 90-10, here we go.
Can you do 95?
Let's negotiate.
How close can we get to 100 today?
I think I'm gonna get close to 100, and I'm gonna recommend that you start flossing so you don't need as much dental work.
Oh man, I feel attacked, but not inaccurate.
So I'm going to get into this very client-centric sales system, and I hope when you listen to it, you're going to realize that sales can actually feel really good, and that sales are absolutely the first coaching opportunity. And the best kinds of sales for what we do are actually coaching. And so I'm going to get in that second, and I'll walk through like the 5 steps of it. And it's actually going to be very, very detailed. This is the longest section by far in the book. Like the longest like single section in the book is that one. So it's quite detailed with a lot of examples and scripts and stuff like that. So I won't go through all of it, but I'll go through a bunch of it. But before, I want to ask you a question. Amber, are you breathing fast or slow right now? Don't answer me, because I don't really need to know or care about your answer.
That's good.
But instead, consider what happened to your awareness when I asked you that question. So with just words that went to space and came back down into your earphones, I kind of just focused you on your breathing. It's this weird sort of inception. And it's a very simple trick. I mean, obviously, I'm not the one who came up with it, but questions kind of have this way of controlling minds. And it sounds like some supervillain shit, but it's not the 37th Avenger movie. It's not supervillain shit, but also we get it. There's good guys, there's bad guys. The good guys have some deep-rooted emotional baggage they need to overcome in order to beat the bad guys. It all seems hopeless, and the good guys overcome insurmountable odds, save the world, yay, and then there's another one. So your breathing existed, but you weren't paying attention to the breathing, probably, before I asked you a question about it. Now, if I said pay attention to your breathing, it wouldn't have been as effective as me asking you a question about your breathing, which forced you to think about it and assess it. So even a dumb question that doesn't make any sense, because what the heck does fast or slow breathing have to do with anything, it still shifts your entire awareness. And I bring up this asinine example because I don't actually think that mind control is necessarily a bad thing. What I do think is that it's a way to focus a client on the change they came to you to make. Because they're speaking to you. They wouldn't be speaking to you if they didn't have an issue. What they might not yet be aware of is how much this issue is affecting their life and the negative repercussions of inaction. So your questions, jobs in a sales conversation, or in a sales conversation is a change conversation, by the way. Your questions job is to establish the tension needed to do what they need to do in order to change for the better. And in the book, I repeat myself so many freaking times on this point. You aren't creating tension. You're highlighting what already exists in the client's mind by focusing your client's attention on issues already plaguing them. You're not manufacturing a problem. You aren't the cause of their pain, but you can be the solution to their pain. And in order to do that, you've got to illuminate that pain for them so that they see that this is the pain and this is perhaps why they're there. And so here's another asinine example. This book is full of them. Let's say you want to drill a hole in your wall and you approach me to help you drill that hole. You wouldn't ask me actually to help because I'm useless with tools. So let's say you would ask my wife.
I was going to say
happens
Alice.
to be very handy with tools. It's not why I married her, but it's
a perk.
it's a distinct added benefit.
Happy byproduct. It's the off-label.
So
Off-label benefit.
Let's say that I happen to be the one talking to you about the job. and you wanted a hole. Okay, you wanted a hole in your wall. So you might say that you need a hole, and I'd ask you, okay, why do you want that hole? And you'd say, oh, I want to hang a shelf. I'd say, cool, why do you want to hang that shelf? You might say that you want to put stuff on it. I'd say, okay, what kinds of things do you want to put on that shelf? And maybe you tell me that you'd want to put a picture of your grandfather and his urn. You'd say that you loved him as a kid and you want to remember him and all the happy memories that you had together. You don't want a hole, you want to remember your grandfather. So you notice that we started very surface level at the hole. And within a few short questions, dug deeper and deeper and deeper into bringing up emotions of loving your grandfather. And right now, you might even be thinking of your own grandfather. I'm thinking of mine as I talk to you about it. I certainly thought of mine as I wrote this. And I even had really, really good memories of my grandfather as I was writing this, which is fun. Like we used to make like card houses together and we used to build them up and up and up and up and up, which was awesome. And I share all of this because unless you're the leading researcher in your field, there's lots of people who know what you know. And that's not me downplaying your knowledge or the importance of it. It's just that your knowledge is not enough to create the tension in your client's mind to do the hard thing to commit to their change in your coaching. And if you don't dig deep, if you don't create that tension, it won't be important enough for them to change. And as you're entering into a sales call, you have to go into it with the goal of not being a salesperson. You have to go into it with your coach's hat on. Because even if somebody doesn't buy, they should still come out of your sales process better than when they went in. And so for that reason, I think that there's actually two goals, two objectives of any client-centric sales conversation. Number one is to help your client better understand their own situation. And number two is to present a tailored solution based on the information that they shared with you. What you do only matters to you. It doesn't yet matter to the client. The only aspects of what you do that matter to the client only matter in relation to what they tell you is important to them. And so when it gets to the end of this call, which we'll get into as we go through this, a big part of the process is listening to them. And like, you should have a notebook. You should be taking notes as they're speaking, not just about what they're saying, but how they're saying it, the language that they're using. And the only things that you should talk about, or you should really be talking about in terms of what your tailored solution is how aspects of what you do specifically help them with the stuff that they told you really bothers them or that they want to achieve. When you're nodding your head, anything you want to add to that before I start really whipping through these 5 main steps?
Just that if you can embrace the idea that sales is a listening occupation, not a talking occupation, you're halfway home with that realization. The more you talk, the worse you're going to do, typically. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good general rule of thumb, right? The more you talk, the worse you're going to do.
Yeah.
For coaching, for sales, for kind of anything.
All of it. All of it. All of it.
I mean, you guys are following that on this podcast.
If we've not taught anything else, we've well informed the listening audience here that the more that we talk here,
Like,
the worse we do. You're welcome.
How much do I pay you guys anyway? Okay, so so a good sales call probably is going to take anywhere from 40 to 60 minutes. And it's going to have 5 parts. The 5 parts are as follows. Number 1, you're going to connect and set the agenda. It's going to take 1 to 3 minutes or so. And I'm going to go through all these parts, right? Number 2 is you're going to discover their pain and aspirations. That's the discovery phase. That's going to be 15 to 20 minutes. Number 3 is you're going to qualify them and you're going to summarize what they said to you, paraphrase it back to them. Number 4 is you're going to present this custom tailored solution to them. That'll be about 8 to 10 minutes. And number 5 is going to be price presentation, objection handling. We probably won't have time to go deep into the objection handling today. Maybe we'll do that on the next podcast. Maybe we'll tease the next podcast. We'll go into the no money, the I need to speak to a spouse, and I want to think about it objections. Because those are the main ones. I mean, there might be other objections, but for the most part, those are the main ones. Okay, so number 1. Step 1, connect, set the agenda, 1 to 3 minutes. I mean, show up like a human, say hello, say their freaking first name on the call. People love their name too. What was that Dale Carnegie line from How to Win Friends and Influence People? It was something like it was like really fun old fogey English, the way that he said it, but it was something like the most glorious name or the most glorious word in the English language to a person is their own name. And so say their name as often as possible in the call, but certainly greet them by their first name. And if they have a hard to pronounce first name, ask them how to pronounce their first name and then repeat after them. Like, it's worth doing that. So say hello, the first name. After a bit of small talk, try to connect on something if you can. I don't know, the weather, who gives a shit? Like we do as humans in person, if there's any way to like connect with small talk. And then you want to take control and you want to set the agenda for the call. So connect really, really quick, probably like a minute, and then you want to control and set the agenda. And as we're going through this process, there are aspects of the script that you should either memorize or like have on a piece of paper in front of you. And then there are aspects of the script where you really want to be listening to them and asking questions and then writing them down. And the aspects of the script that you are basically the same every single time that I think is really valuable to have on a piece of paper and eventually memorize are the transition statements. Because the transition statements are what give the call structure and they're what keep you in control. And so when you're setting the agenda for them, after a little bit of small talk, here's a transition statement. Obviously, Ren, we've only got a short time together, so I want to be respectful of that. On this call, we're going to figure out if or how I can help you. To do that, we need to get clarity in these 3 areas. First, I'd like to understand where you are right now. Second, I want to see how things got to this point. And third, I'd love to get a sense of where you want to be and figure out how to get there. And of course, if there's something I can help you with, I will. But if not, don't worry. I've got a lot of resources I can point you towards. So either way, you'll leave this call with some next steps. Does that sound good? Wait for their permission to move forward. Yes, that sounds great, of course, right? But then you see how that statement immediately just goes from like 2 people shooting the shit about the weather or whatever it is that could really drag on and just kind of grabs control, gives it structure, frames up the call, and gives you permission of what you're going to say. So that's where these transition statements are really useful. Number 2. This is the part that will take some practice. This is the part where you really need to be a curious, confident skeptic. You got to discover their pains and their aspirations. Don't assume that you understand your client's problem before gathering evidence. Even if they filled out some sort of a form, what often happens is when they fill out a form, they say things that they feel like they should say because they're talking to somebody in fitness. And when we talk to somebody in industry or in a field where we are not experts in that field, which are going to be most of your clients, even trainers who, like when you've got a bunch of clients who are trainers, like they probably still tell you the stuff that they feel like you want to hear or that they should tell you until you speak to them. And then when you speak to them, you can peel back the onion and go back deeper and deeper and deeper. And so oftentimes, even if you have an intake, don't assume you understand your client's problem. Instead, be skeptical, be curious, and go deeper. So you want to begin with very, very surface level questions and dig deeper with why, with what, with how, and with if type questions. So even if you think you know the answer, ask anyway. Because even if you're right and you know the answer, you don't know the answer using the words that your client is using. And that phrasing is going to be very valuable. So layer by layer, take them deeper, be curious, be skeptical, and goddamn take notes. Because I don't care how good your memory is. You ever go to a restaurant and there's like 8 people at a table and that waiter, you're all rattling off stuff. And then Allison's like, can I have this without soy? And then her mama is like, oh, I need no tomatoes and no gluten and no cheese. And the waiter's just nodding his head. Yes, yes, yes. And you're like, there is no way in hell you're getting this right. Our brains are just not built to remember lots of small bits of information. It's just not physiologically how we're designed. So you're not a special flower. Beth the trainer. We're just gonna rip on Beth. I feel like there's one Beth who listens. I feel like there was a Beth who listened to this podcast at one point, and she's out.
She's gone.
Not the one in our Facebook group, because if I think she does listens, we're not talking about you. He literally pulled that name out of the hat. It is not you.
I know. It's Beth. I'm telling you, man. It's Beth. And it's those polyamorous vegans from California. God.
Those polyamorous Burning Man vegans from Cali. They get the most shit from us out of everybody. Poor Beth. Not our Beth.
Poor bastards.
Some random Beth. Not the Beth.
Yeah. Not the Beth. Not you, Beth. You know who you are, Beth. So Beth, take some goddamn notes. by the end of the 20 minutes of discovering the sales call, this is where like you really bring up this existing tension, and there will be tension. Okay. By the end of the 20 minutes of discovering the sales call, a client needs to know the following 5 things, right? Like a client needs to be aware of these things because oftentimes the client doesn't know these things about themselves. So number 1, what's their pain? Number 2, why do they doubt they can solve it themselves? Number 3, what is it costing them to stay the same? Number 4, what's their urgency to fix the problem? And number 5, what's their vivid vision of a better future? In some cases, a client will answer these questions and realize it's not important enough for them to move forward. That's cool, man. You wouldn't be able to get him results even if you could trick him to sign up. It's pretty important you figure that out. In most cases, there's a lot of tension that exists. And it's going to be really important for you to bring up that tension in the call. There aren't really any bad questions in this part of the call. A good rule of thumb is to kind of ask why until it gets tense and then ask kind of 2 more times. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of tension. It'll be kind of as awkward as it probably was when Luke Skywalker found out that Princess Leia, who he just made out with, was his sister.
Awkward.
I think I used that joke twice in the book, but it's hella funny, so I'm just going to keep using it. I used that book, and I used that joke in a previous book too. I'm just going to keep using it. I feel like I'm going to use that joke at least once in a book. It's like I whip on Starbucks a few times in the book too. I'm like, I feel like I'm just going to give Starbucks shit in every book. So it's really important you learn to let the tension just kind of sit there, because that tension is actually the energy the client needs. A lot of your job as the coach is to kind of illuminate it, is to call them out on their BS. A lot of the reason why they haven't changed is because they haven't faced it themselves. So the better job that you actually do here, the fewer objections you'll meet when you present the premise. And also, the more meaningful the information you'll have to combat any objections that do come up. And so these questions could be anything. Like I said, like any question is good. But here's a couple really good ones to keep in your back pocket. And in addition to the transition statements that I think that you should write down and have in front of you, I think that you should have this list of questions in front of you too when you're doing a sales call, just so you can kind of pull from them. And you'll find that these ones give you really good information. So I'll just whip through a bunch of them. What's not working in your workouts right now to the level you feel like it should? If they tell you that they have kind of a problem, oh, how long have you been struggling with that? And then they'll say like 2 years, and then you shut your fucking face because they're going to keep going. They say 2 years, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you're not going to get any useful information. But if you say, how long have you been struggling with that? They're going to be 2 years. You're like, and then they're going to start telling you more about it. What specifically have you tried to fix whatever problem they bring up? Oh, what worked? What didn't work? Why? Has this issue, has this problem, whatever they bring up, right? Has this put you in a tough spot in any way? Oh, how so? What kinds of things have you missed out on because of this? Every time I say this, it's basically a blank for you to fill in. What kind of things have you missed out on because of this? Is this affecting your personal life in any way? Oh, how so? If you were to pick just one thing, what would you say is the worst part about your entire situation right now? How do you mean? When did you decide that you've had enough? This is my favorite one. Can I ask you an honest question? What do you think has been keeping you from figuring this out on your own? typo in there. Okay. What? This is great. It's so useful because I would never people always like, oh yeah, read your work out loud. You'll like feel how it sounds and it'll be so much better. I'm like, I ain't reading that shit out loud by myself. Come on, man. But this is great because this gives me an opportunity. Like it's not verbatim when I read it. Like I turn it into conversation, and I've read off teleprompters so much that I know how to kind of manipulate it, maneuver it. But this is useful because I find typos. What happens if nothing changes? Why not stay exactly where you are right now? What would happen if another 5 years go by and you still feel this way? Okay, Ronald, let's make this fun. What's Ronald 2.0 like? What does he do differently every day? Can you be specific? If you and I were sitting on the beach 1 year from today, sipping coconut water, what would have happened for you to say to me, holy crap, this has been the best year of my life? And then finally, the most important question to make sure that you ask on every single call is this one. Why is this important to you right now? So do you see, I mean, and you're not going to like ask all of those questions, but do you see how powerful those questions are to keep in your back pocket? And those are coaching questions. Can you imagine if you asked those questions, how just dialed in, how good of a program, how tight the connection is, how much you'll understand about your client before you even start training with them to hit the ground running on day one? Just how good that would be. This is why we talk about how coaching is selling, and the best salespeople are phenomenal coaches. And you don't even need to think of yourself as a salesperson. All you got to do is just do what you do best, man, which is coach. So talk to me, Len, before we move over to the qualify and summarize part.
It's when you're in the section of my perception of this is that when you're in the section of the sales process, there's not a lot of recovering if you don't do a great job here. Conversely, if you do a great job here and you flub somewhere else, this information that you have and the fact that this human on the other hand, who's probably never been intently listened to, has once in their life had a conversation where someone actually cared what they were saying more than they cared to tell them something. The comment I get all the time, and I use the same joke every time. The comment I always get is, you're a really good listener. And I always say, I'm the one man on the planet that listens, ma'am. And they always giggle about that. because literally, it's astounding how many people have never had someone listen to them. I'll drop it. I'll land my plane there.
Yeah. That's such a powerful point that it's sad, but it's
really sad.
It's a sad reality that, I mean, maybe it's true or maybe it's not true that they've never had anybody who's intently listened to them that way. Whether it's true or not, it certainly seems that way a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And what I particularly like about that, and this is, like even in this book, even as we go through this podcast, like we talk about pretty deep shit sometimes, right? But we will build up tension and build up and build up and build up, and then you diffuse that tension, right? And then you start building it up again. And that's what you did with that joke, which is great. Having a couple of those in your back pocket doesn't mean that you need to like go out there and manufacture it, but I do think that that's pretty effective that you did that. And then you brought your Southern manners in there, of course, man.
But it's a great transition because this is the point where I'm going to dream. Like I'm summarizing, and our next stage is the goodness that lies ahead, right? And I'll land the second plane now, and then a lot of planes today.
You're landing a lot of planes today.
I could maybe be a snastronaut one day. If I keep practicing.
I'm gonna make a shirt. I'm making a shirt that has to happen.
I want to be a snastronaut so much.
So bad.
So at this point, right, if you do this well, you've gone pretty deep. Like you've gone deeper than the Mariana Trench, which, for those of you who don't know, is the deepest part of the ocean. And I don't know if you've seen fish that live at the depths of the ocean, but they're hella ugly.
Aliens,
Go,
bro.
go Google what an anglerfish looks like. All right, hate me later on that one. So your main discovery's done, but it's not yet time to rattle off all the amazing things that you can do for the client specific to their deep desires. Because in an ideal world, they're actually first going to qualify themselves to you. Now imagine if your coaching program, not you are, John, learn grammar, goddamn. So imagine if, as I edit my own book in real time on the podcast. Wonderful. I love how I'm posting some of the stuff, like usually just dumb stuff that I write on Facebook. I'm posting like snippets of the book every so often. And I love how I post it and then people like workshop the book and like make it better for me as we're going. So imagine if your coaching program was an exclusive private school and little Timmy is so special and he just has to go there because they have a pickleball court and Timmy loves pickleball. You can just see it now. Timmy Pickle, they'll call him as they chant his name.
What?
But this school then is exclusive. It gets to choose which students to accept. Now, you'd line up and beg to get in. It kind of needs to be the same kind of thing with your coaching, but with an example that makes more sense than a kid desperately wanting to play pickleball at school. So before summarizing the call, remind the client of your standards for acceptance into your program. Here's a transition statement. So, their name. So, Reggie, everything you just told me you want to do sounds amazing. Now, I want to make sure that you understand that in order to get there, it's going to require some hard work. We don't sell quick fixes or short-term gimmicks here. For where you want to get to be, it's going to be work. Does that make sense? Wait for them to say yes, then continue. And what I found is that our most successful clients, these three qualities and are willing to acquire them. First, you've got to be coachable and willing to take my feedback. Second, you have to be a positive person through this journey, understanding that at times it's probably going to feel pretty hard. And third, you got to stay on the path or work to get back on the path, even when you're struggling. Now, is there any reason why you wouldn't be able to do those three things? So the client says yes, or the client says, no, I mean, that sounds wonderful. And then you summarize the call. All along, you should have been writing down their notes, using the exact words and phrases they used. And you want to revisit the tension by plugging their words. So here's another transition statement. And when you could probably do this because you're really experienced with these types of calls. I find having this statement basically templated for me to fill in with the stuff they told me on the call really helps. So I consider this to be a transition statement, but as you get more experienced, you might be able to do it without this statement. So here's how it goes. So just to recap everything we just hit on, you told me, and then here you're going to fill in the real problem now and what they've tried to do to solve it, but previously failed. And that's why we're on the call today. Because the truth is, you really want, and this is where you lay out the true motivation, the deep motivation, and then the vivid vision of the future they're dreaming. And that's why you came to me. And did I miss anything here? And just see what comes back. What will often happen here, I would think, is when around this part of the call is when you might get somebody saying, wow, you're a really good listener. So did I miss anything there, Ryan?
No, I found that when you use that transition, sometimes because clients don't get an opportunity to hear what they say repeated back to them.
Okay.
I've had people on calls before that would have an emotional response to those statements, right? They, I've had many, and Amber, I'm sure has had this is the same experience because we work with a similar population. But sometimes for me, with the clients that I work with, moms over 30, that's like a release point. Like when they really come to grips with what they asked for versus they come to grips with the fact that they asked to lose 2 dress sizes versus realizing that they're never in pictures with their children, for instance. The reason you came to me to drop 2 dress sizes, what that really means for you is being in those vacation pictures long after you've left this planet for your kids and grandkids to look back on them fondly, and I'll get a release right there from that person. That's what happens most often because they never heard that realization out loud coming back to them. And I'm done talking again.
And they cry.
They cry.
And
they cry.
Yeah,
So
big time.
this brings up. I don't think we're gonna have time to get it on this pod, guys.
You're so
I don't think
good,
we're gonna have
John.
time to. I know, I'm so cool. I don't think we're gonna have time to get to it on this pod, but I will bring up one of them. There's 6 common coaching sales traps to avoid, and one of them I'll bring up really quick here because I think it's very important to state. Number 3, a big common trap that people fall into, is comforting them when they break down.
Yep.
They didn't come to you for therapy. They came to you for change. Even if you're a therapist, this call is not a therapy call. But you're a good person. So you'll want to tell them that it's going to be okay and not to worry if they break down on the call. I think it's really important to resist that urge. The best response is often no response. You identify, you repeat back to them what they said, and then you stay silent and you listen to them. And in response to your silence, they may open up a lot more. This is going to be hard. Tension can be really, really painful. But without pain, there's no progress. And so don't go out of your way to elicit pain. But I don't think you downplay it either. Instead, let the client use that pain that already exists within them to light a fire under their fucking ass to change for the better. That's what a coach will do. Moving on. Number 4. Present a solution. 8 to 10 minutes, give or take. So it's finally time to talk about your coaching. You're going to present a tailored solution to your client based off the information they shared with you on the call. Every single time you mention an aspect of your coaching, relate it back to how it will help your client achieve their dream outcome or overcome one of their doubts. Getting to the point in the call where you're going to ask for money without a transition, it's kind of like wearing Nikes knowing you just can't do it. If you've always felt awkward asking for money, I want what I'm about to say to be a Reese's Peanut Butter Cups moment where it all comes together perfectly. Nothing for that Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
No, I mean they
It's
are
the best
perfect.
line in the book.
They
The
are
best line in
perfect.
the
We all realize it.
I came across that line somewhere. I don't even remember where. And I saved it. And I've saved that line for years. And I'm like, I'm going to use this one time. And I don't know where. And I texted Allison when I used it. And I'm really upset that you guys didn't break down laughing when I said it. I feel like I got to work on the delivery because that line kills. Okay. You want me to read that statement again?
No, John. No,
Damn
I
it.
mean, Amber's sleep deprived, and I have poor oral hygiene habits, so we move past
It's important to floss after every meal.
it. I have great oral hygiene habits, by the way. Do you see these pearly whites?
You know what I
here?
like? You know what
See
I
this?
like to do? I like using those flossers, not the actual floss itself, because my teeth are actually a little bit too close together. So if you use a floss, I have a hard time getting it like through the teeth.
Yeah,
But the flosser, I can use my top teeth to like
little
push it down on top of
things
that.
with the string in between the 2 points, like a
Yeah, and it's got
mini-
like a toothpick on the back of it.
yeah,
so you, like, pick out.
yeah.
I mean,
A mini-
I don't really need the toothpick unless I eat celery. It's stuck
I don't do
everywhere.
the toothpick, but I like the little bow and arrow in the front. That's just fun for me. Little miniature bow.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups moment where it all comes perfectly together. Because chocolate and peanut butter.
Very well done.
Come together. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done.
So the transition into this section is very, very important. So here's another one of these transition phrases. Based on what you told me, I'm 100% confident I can help you. The reason that I'm confident is because I only work with 2 types of people. Now, from here, you're going to tailor your responses to the client. So the first person you mentioned is kind of like not like them. And then the second person is going to be very much like them. So the first person, first, I work with whatever, white dudes who want to look better in a t-shirt. Sorry, Bethany, whose best friend was Beth, that listens to this podcast and loves it, even though we make fun of her. And she's like, I really want to work with her. I sent you a referral, by the way, today, Ryan. I don't know if she reached out to you. But
I did.
Yeah, there you go. So that came from me. You're welcome.
Well, they said Jonathan Goodman when they mentioned.
Oh, did they? Oh, yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Second, I work with, and you're going to describe somebody who's exactly like your client. And then you go into this. And the way that I help them is based on helping them through, and you're going to just list the pain points the client said. And then you're going to bring up things in your program that solve their pain points. So, would you like to hear a breakdown of the program? So yes, because it sounds like this program is magically perfectly for them. And oh my goodness,
Right.
What a coincidence. How did they ever find you on the internet? Oh, this is serendipity, my friend. So here's an example of how this might sound for a coach working with busy moms looking to lose a few pounds, have more energy for her kids, and nourish her family with nutritious meals. When you know this audience better than me, so you can tell me whether this is complete and utter bullshit. And the way I help them lose 10 pounds is through quick but effective 30-minute workouts they can do 3 times a week. A meal plan based on food their whole family will enjoy, and easy to incorporate habits to give them more energy to play with their kids. Would you like to hear a breakdown of the program? Did I get it?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. You'd think I might have done this once or twice before. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. Benefits sell, logic justifies. Benefits are emotional, they appeal to the heart. Logic is objective, it appeals to the brain. You still, up until this point, have not told them much about your program. Up until now, you focus largely on the benefits. So they kind of know what your program does, right? They know why it works, they know how it's suited for them, but they don't know what's included. So you've given them all the benefits, right? You haven't given them the logic yet, and they kind of need that logic to justify what their emotional brain is telling them because they're about to make a scary decision. So in this final step before you ask for the money, you're going to describe your program, still tailoring it to them, but you're giving them the logical reasons they need to justify the emotional decision to buy your coaching. So in this final part before the money, you don't want to talk for more than 3 to 5 minutes. You have 2 goals. Number 1 is you want to tell them exactly how they get started so they gain comfort. And number 2, you're going to show a maximum of 2 features tailored to the client. So here's a really short example to work with for goal 1. Goal 2 is so specific to your client that I can't really give you a script, but the most important advice I can give you is just don't linger. Okay. First, as soon as we get started, I'll get you set up in my custom coaching system. I use Quick Coach. It's amazing. It's super easy to use. Then, ideally within 24 hours, we'll get on a call to hit the ground running so we don't lose any of the amazing momentum we built on the call. You just kind of want to make them comfortable. It's, Amber, you learned this, I think, maybe it was Abigail actually who was talking to me about this with StoryBrand, with Donald Miller stuff. A lot of what he teaches through StoryBrand is just the importance of when you're selling something, tell somebody as part of your sales process what happens immediately after they buy. Because there's a lot of nervousness. That transition from I just bought the thing to how do I use the thing or how do I get benefits of the thing. They don't actually need to get the benefits yet, but it's very important to ease their nerves before they purchase, to be like, right when you buy, here's exactly what happens. You're never going to be left alone. Next up, we've got price and objection handling, right? Isn't this easy? You just flow through this. And as you do this more and more, and I do recommend, even though it's awkward as all hell, I do recommend that you role play this. And it's so awkward and such a silly thing to do. God, it makes a difference. Price and objection handling. Depending on the objections, this could be as easy as basically telling the price, basically 5 to 20 minutes. It's time to put on your big boy pants. Time to ask for money. Here's another transition phrase. You want to do a temperature check before you get in there. You want to test the waters. Okay, Reginald. I'm going to pause here because I've been talking for a bit. Curious. Based on what you told me earlier on this call and what I've told you about the coaching, do you feel like I might be able to help you? Whatever their goal was. So if they say no to that, you definitely don't want to bring up the price, right? You want to ask them what's missing. Clearly there's an unmet objection or they like whatever, right? But that can happen. And so you want to make sure that you get that up. Most often they'll say yes. And when they do, don't accept it at face value. Be the curious and skeptical coach one last time. And respond, okay, but I'm curious. Why do you say that? Because you want them to tell you why the program is right for them. You don't want to tell them why the program is right for them. You want them to tell you that. So they've already told you this, right? Of course. But you want to reinforce their sense of need before you actually name the price. So, and then additionally, whatever they say, it makes for an easy lead in and transition to bringing up the investment. So after, you say, oh, but I'm curious, why do you say that? No matter what they say, you don't respond to it or anything like that. You appreciate what they said and you say, great. So would you like to discuss the investment? So you see how like asking that second time and being skeptical leads into a really easy transition. Mm-hmm. And I hope you're also seeing now, dear listener, Beth, thank you so much for listening, Beth. We really appreciate you. I hope that you're seeing just how much these transition statements frame the call. So they'll say, yes, I want to discuss the investment. And then this is the part where I like having, again, just like a script. As you get more experience, you may or may not want one, but here's give or take what we generally recommend. As we dig into the price, I want you to understand that this isn't a temporary fix. It's not a band-aid. It's the full solution. So the price of the coaching is, boom, what's your full price, right? Like not like a payment plan, nothing. So the price of the coaching is $2,000. Pause. Let that sink in for a second or two. That includes everything we just talked about. It includes, and here you're going to repeat those like 2 features that you talked about. It includes everything you need to, and then you're going to repeat their dream outcome. The full investment is $2,000. Now I can split that into 2 payments of $1,200 if that's easier. So it'd be 2 payments of $1,200, one now, and then one in 30 days. So which option works best for you, Reginald? $2,000 up front or $1,200 now and $1,200 in 30 days? And at this point, you mute your phone. You can make sure your leg's out of the frame as it's like twitching like mad, waiting for them to respond. It's like, you know what it's gonna feel like? It's gonna feel like you just got on a treadmill and you're gonna feel like you've been running for like 30 minutes and you look down on the treadmill and you're like, 3 seconds? What the hell?
So you fight your demons. You fight your own personal financial demons right here. All of your limiting beliefs about money need to be fought here and muted, so you don't accidentally spit out. But I can give you a discount. But I can do 4 payments if you want.
If they say yes, great. Take their payment over the phone. Do not I'm going to say that twice. Do not send them a link to pay. 9 times out of 10, if you send them a link to pay, you will lose the sale. On your end, have your payment processor open on your computer, get them to read their payment information to you and enter it yourself into the payment processors if you're done. In many cases, though, they're not just going to be like, yeah, that sounds great, $2,000, let's do it, hell yeah. They'll begin talking. It's fine. It's a big decision. Change is hard. Don't interrupt them. When they finish talking, wait for a full 2 Mississippis. Let your legs shake. Think back to that last time 7 years ago when you were on a treadmill. Because during that pause, they'll often talk themselves into it, and you don't want to interrupt them. If you've paused for 2 or 3 seconds and it's your turn to talk, you can make a decision whether you're skeptical. Often they'll bring up some sort of an objection, which we'll get into on the next podcast. So make sure that you subscribe to the Obvious Choice podcast, or if you listen to podcasts, you make sure you get that right away, and rate and review the show as well if you're enjoying this. And please, actually, if you're enjoying listening to this episode, please take a screenshot, post it to Instagram, and tag me at It's Coach Goodman, just so I can give you a high five. Okay, that was a lot. You're not done yet, though. You thought you were done? You're going to have to listen to this episode like 4 times through, dude. Whoever you are listening to this, Beth, dude, we're buddies now, I think, Beth. It's a lot. It's helpful, by the way, for anybody making content to have one person specifically that they feel like they're making content for, even though they made up that person in their mind. It really helps with keeping the whole thing real. So Beth, imaginary Beth, you're not actually quite done yet. So picture this, okay? You and your client are on the phone. They just gave you their payment info, and you're both sitting in silence. You went super deep. This person let their heart out to you, right, on the phone. And now they're giving you like a few $1,000s. And you're both sitting in awkward as all hell silence as you enter in their payment information into the. Was that a 4 or a 3 at the end of your credit card information? It's awkward. The seconds it takes to process can feel like kind of an eternity. I'm gonna make a running on a treadmill joke in there because that's a good joke. And your client during these seconds is almost certainly having second thoughts about both the expenditure and the commitment. So dive into the coach role right now. Don't hang up the phone. Coaches meet their client emotionally where they're at. Call out what's going on. Get the client's mind focused on the future rather than what just occurred. The minute that it goes through. All right, congratulations. I'm so pumped to work with you, Roger. You are so courageous for going after this. The only way to get what you want in life is to get out of your comfort zone. You just did that. So here's what's going to happen next. You're going to get off the phone and you're going to take a big deep breath, knowing that you just made a commitment to change your life. I know it's hella scary, but you've made the right decision. I've got your back. You've got the support you need now, the support you have never had before. So first thing I need you to do after you take that deep breath is to check your email. Open the one I just sent you and follow the instructions. You're going to click a few buttons to download my custom coaching app. I use this program called Quick Coach. It really is phenomenal. It's really easy. It's super intuitive. My clients love it. You see that email? Good. When you're filling that out, I'll add you to our private community. And the final thing we'll do today is schedule a kickoff call. That's when we'll set up your execution plan. And then you schedule a call with them, ideally within 24 hours, to get them going as fast as possible. Your goal is to get your clients through the first few steps in the process as fast as possible. The more they have to work on, the less time they have to regret the purchase or overthink the purchase that they just made. Okay, holy crap beans. That was a lot. By the way, when I typed crap beans into my computer, it auto-corrected it to co beans.
Nice.
And I don't know what a co bean is, but I think crap beans is as much of a word as carbines. And so I don't know where this autocorrect shit comes from. Right. Final important stuff to say. This was a lot. Parts of it might not feel right to you, which is cool, bro. You do you. Make it yours. Put it in your voice. I've tried to communicate a little bit about the framing of it, about the why, about the importance of the tension, about the importance of diffusing the tension. When I think you add what you added in there was phenomenal. But know that the process you just learned is a great starting point. Your script's never going to be set in stone. The more calls you do, the more you'll learn, the more you'll tweak your script to make it better, more suited to your personality, more targeted to your clients. That having been said, I have found having those transition statements in front of you and having a list of questions just that you can pull from is really, really useful. Still, don't feel like you have to get it perfect, because you're not. If you even do a remotely adequate job of this and you follow this framework, I don't know, what would you guys say? You're in the top 2% of people who self-fitness? Like you'll be at the top. So I want to end this by leaving you with this one thing. I want you to focus on two aspects and wrap it around this way. It's not sales, it's coaching. Ask questions and listen. The more interested and excited you are about them, the better. And second, the transitions are the awkward parts. So, memorize them shits.
Oh, that reminded me of home, the way you said that. Memorize them shits.
Memorize them shits.
Ironically, me too.
So that was a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend another episode to listen to. You'll probably want to listen to this episode a few times over. My guess is you're on the go right now, maybe on a treadmill counting down the seconds. And I hope that this has let you pass it, but definitely have listened to this episode with like a notepad, right? And so you can take notes. But if you're looking for another episode to listen to right now, I want to recommend episode 18. If you like this really thorough deep dive, like tactical deep dive, you are going to love episode 18, where I go through step by step by step how to build a high profit, high impact coaching program. And what you will know by the end of that is the difference and the answer to this question, which is, why do some coaches sell programs for thousands while others can't sell them for $20? And it absolutely has to do with the framing and the marketing and the positioning, but it also has to do with the service of the program itself. And I go through in detail, like I did in this one, all of the steps. Nothing's held back. So if you're looking for another episode 18 of the Obvious Choice podcast, and for Ronald.
Stop it, Jonathan. I'm going to text Allison and ask for your middle name so I can yell at you appropriately.
It's Michael. It's not a fun middle name.
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah,
that's
it's
boring.
not a fun middle name. I know. Okay, thank you for listening. Y'all are awesome. This was fun. And when Amber, get ready tomorrow. You're gonna need you a little.
I have something for tomorrow. I'm gonna write it down because I will forget. But I have something good for tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, bye, buddy.